Ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. I want to welcome each and every one of you to the courthouse here and to the public information meeting on the Spencer Watershed Study and the planning that's coming from that. This is an informational meeting only. At the end, we'll have question and answers, but not during the presentation itself. My name is Jerry McFarland. Hey, Billy. That's the man that caused all this right here. That's him. I'm Jerry McFarland. I'm Commissioner of the 5th District, also the Chairman of the Planning and Zoning Committee of the County Commission, and therefore it came my duty, if you will, to get this study completed. And the captain wanted me to make a few administrative announcements on the front end. If we have to leave the building for any reason, left or right, we can go down the staircase and exit the building that way. If you need restrooms, to your right or to my right, to your left, back in the back corner of the building, restrooms, and there's also some out here in the hallway. We're going to not have questions during the presentation. It's going to be kind of a slide and a little bit lengthy. At the end, we'll have a panel discussion and questions at that time. A couple of folks I want to introduce to you. Chris Lawless over here. Chris is the county planner, and he and I have been working together on this. He's the full-time man on the job, if you will. And Naomi Vandergarden. She got a big, long name. I'm not sure exactly, but my apologies. So at any rate, I think we got Valerie McCormick, and we got, oh gosh, Mike Sarles here. Where are you, Mike? I saw you. There you go, a minute ago. And then we're going to get into our presentation in just a moment. I want to share just a couple of things why we in the county wanted to do this. The county needs this kind of information for three reasons, as we see it in the planning committee. Number one is for the planning department that approves where houses are being built, to make sure we don't have critical lots that lot will be underwater at some point in time, and that the house they're on will also be underwater. So we want to make sure that specifically. WEMA, Wilson Emergency Management, needs the information here for warning and for evacuation and evacuation routes. And the road department needs the information here as we move 20 years in the future, 2045, and part of this will be talking about that. Roads are going to have to be built up slightly. They're going to have larger orifices or areas underneath the bridges for the water to flow from. So it benefits three of the different departments of Wilson County. So I'm going to pass it now to our presenter, and at that time, if you will come up, I've lost your name here. Kelly. Kelly, come up, please.
I can either add it after you're done.
Jump in here.
I did it now.
Chris, jump in. Share what you want to.
Yeah. Christopher Laws, I'm the director of the planning department here. This information for us, for the planning department, it could help possibly guide future development in the county. Is a planning tool to help create responsible growth. It's not necessarily going to fix any of the current issues here, but it'll help hopefully mitigate some of the ones that could incur in the future. As larger developments occur in the county and in this specific watershed, we can utilize this tool to call out specific areas to have developer-driven infrastructure improvements along with drainage mitigation projects from those developments. Once this is officially adopted by the county commission, we'll be able to use this as a tool going forward for the planning department of the county. And I believe also the city of Lebanon, the parts of that is implemented in this, they'll be able to utilize that as well.
Was that anything else? Kelly Peck with the Engineer Chief of Water Resources.
Yes. Okay, so we kind of breezed through some of this already. An introduction to the panel, we introduced some people, but we have Maddie Neely down there from the City of Lebanon. We have Brennan Power from the Corps. You met Valerie, she's from the Corps. We have Captain Laws here from the Corps of Engineers. Kelly Peck with the Corps of Engineers. You've met Jerry. We have Melissa Sizemore from WEMA, and then you've met Christopher over there. So a quick intro to the panel. Again, we'll all be up here to answer questions or have a discussion at the end. This is kind of a quick agenda of what we'll be going through. I have the really long, boring part. I have about 30 minutes to tell you about the program, about the study itself, and some results from that study. And we'll have closing comments and then the discussion at the end. So we've studied in the past before, the Corps has, within Wilson County. In 2015, we had a study under Section 205 of the Flood Control Act of 1948 in Bartons Creek watershed. That was authorized for design and construction, but we did not design and construct anything. In 2022, Wilson County re-engaged with the Corps so that we could look into studying Spencer Creek watershed, some recurring flooding issues that you all have since experienced from 2022 and before then. This is under what we call planning assistance to states, and it is under Section 22 of the Water Resources Development Act of 1974. This program is technical assistance only. It provides information to communities, and it does not lead to design and construction. So I just want to be clear there that this is for information for the county. It will not lead to something constructible that the Corps would be doing for the community. The study officially kicked off in 2023, and then we're in the final stages of review now. So it will be completed later this summer. So you've seen this map out in the hallway, or maybe you have a copy in front of you. So just to be familiar with where Spencer Creek watershed is within the county limits, it's that red watershed up at the top left of your screen there. And so this study supports flood preparedness within Spencer Creek watershed, and it helps county planners and emergency managers improve their response to flooding within this watershed. Two things specifically I'll be talking about today are analyzing risk of flooding due to increased development and population growth, and analyzing flood risk due to more intense rainfall events, which you've experienced more recently last weekend or the weekend before. So this is a more close-up view of the watershed, an aerial image, so you can see exactly where we're going to be talking about. So there were a few different streams within this watershed we looked at: Spencer Creek, Dry Fork Branch, Cooks Branch, and an unnamed tributary. Today we'll be looking more so at the Spence Creek neighborhood along Highway 109 and the communities off Double Log Cabin Road. There are a lot of other communities and households within this watershed, but for the time, respecting everyone's time tonight, I'll be focusing on specific examples from those communities. The scope of this study, we looked at historical events. So we looked at a ton of events, major flood events in the area, in order to inform future flooding. So we typically don't try to predict conditions in the future, but we did have one specific task to look at projections of population and development in order to help the county plan for such development. So we have two deliverables. We have a flood inundation map book that shows impacts of roads, critical infrastructure, and some neighborhoods with various rainfall amounts. And then we have the future impacts due to predicted flow and stage increases with more intense rainfall events. So talking about the process a bit of our study, so you're familiar with what data goes into it. We kicked off this study in 2023. Some of you may have been there initially to provide us information, some photos, historic information, your own stories about flooding. Some of those photos might be up on the screen. It's very critical information for us to have. So we gathered high water marks from this information for those 7 events up on your screen. 2024, 2022, 2021, 2020, you guys have had a lot of major flooding in this region recently. So we take all of that information in order to help inform our computer models. We also survey bridges and we collect terrain data to help build our models. We develop what we call flood frequency information from that statistical analysis of historic flood events, and we are able to calibrate our models with all of this data to build what we call an existing condition. So existing condition is what helps inform our future conditions. So for our future conditions, we received data from Wilson County on developments that are planned or are ongoing. And we also used population projections out to 2045 with the Greater Nashville Regional Council. They help predict increased people working in the watershed and the increased number of people living. So there's people working and people living within the county, which help those projections of population. With that information, we use literature and case studies in order to help inform how those development and population changes will change conditions of the watershed. So your runoff will change because of all of that, because of the increased pavement and just more surfaces that are not permeable. So we also took information of varied rainfall events. We have looked at different rainfall patterns, more intense storms, so that you can have a wide range of storms that are either 24 hours, 12 hours, or a 6-hour storm. So we use all of that information to update our existing conditions that we have our future conditions models. Like I mentioned before, we had 2 products that we're going to talk about today from this study. One comes from those existing conditions. So what is it like out there today in your backyards? We'll go over the map book for some of those communities, and it uses a 24-hour storm, so maybe a more typical rolling storm coming into your community. On the right-hand side of the screen, you have the changes due to the future development and population changes. So we'll talk about what that means in relation to increases of flow and increase of flood depth. So the key results. So there are graphs, there are tables, and I'm going to try to keep you guys engaged as much as I can, and informed really is the most important part. So the map book here, it's a flood inundation mapping product designed to be used for forecasted storm events. So the county planners and emergency management can use this information to help predict what roads or bridges might be inundated or what critical infrastructure might be impacted in a certain rainfall event. It's really used to make recommendations, which roadways might need to be closed, where evacuations may need to be in a certain event. So this is also based on best available data. It's based on a hypothetical storm. Every storm is unique. Every storm is different. So it really is just used to help inform these decisions. You do have some copies up here. There's like 3 big binders if anyone wanted to follow along, you want to look at it later. So I'm going to go over more of the map book, and you guys can take a look at it or follow along if you'd like. So we use the Weather Service predicted rainfall, so the forecast, your regular Weather Service forecast. We created 4 events that we would base the map books off of, A, B, C, and D. A is close to a bank full event. So when you see the rivers rising about bank full, that's event A. Event B is out of banks. Event C is the 100-year event, or what we call the 1% chance flood. This is a 1% chance of that flood happening in any given year. Just to make that clear, it's not once every 100 years. You have a 1% chance of that happening in any given year. And then we have event D, which is about your 500-year event. So in relation to the map book and in relation to what makes more sense when you're looking at the Weather Service forecast, we've related those 4 events to inches of rain. So it's event A is 2 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. Event B is 4 inches of rain in a 24-hour period, so on and so forth. So this is an example page of the map book, and I wanted you to take a look at the legend. You have those 4 events, A, B, C, and D, related to those 4 colors, the blue, yellow, red, and purple. And so I'll walk through some examples as well so you guys can understand how the county will be using it, the city will be using it, and emergency management will be using it for risk mitigation and resiliency. So for the blue inundation that you're seeing, that's the inundation extent or the flood extent you would expect to see when you get 2 inches of rainfall in a 24-hour period. The yellow is that inundation of the blue plus the yellow, and that's the extent of what you would see in 4 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. Event C and D are the same. So this is a big watershed, so we have a map index page, and you guys can see this later on. Because there are so many maps within this map book, we're just going to focus on a few. Like I mentioned, the Spence Creek neighborhood and Double Log Cabin Road. So this is, map page A10 for Spence Creek. And just to help everyone understand what this map is showing is that Spence Creek Road or Drive, I can't read that, you'll see a red bridge icon. So what that means is that bridge or that roadway leading in and out of the community starts to become inundated at that red event, the C event, which is 6 inches of rainfall in a 24-hour period. So if we have a large rainfall event coming, and Melissa here knows that we have 6 inches of rain coming in 24 hours, she knows that that roadway is going to start to be impacted, and she should be telling the community as such. And you can kind of tell with the inundation what event, if you're living in this neighborhood, you would expect to see some inundation in your roadways or in your backyards. This is just moving a little bit further upstream in the same neighborhood. I want to say it's Rock Castle. I can't read that far, but
That's correct.
it is? Yep. Nice. Okay. So that yellow bridge icon, again, that's event B, starts to overtop that roadway. So getting in and out or going through that road might become a little bit more difficult when we would see 4 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. And this area doesn't have any bridges to show, but it still would be able to help inform some impacts to the backside of that community. So now if we move to Double Log Cabin Road, starting at the most downstream end, that roadway sees a lot of water. It looks like event A, which is 2 inches of rain in a 24-hour period, is a pretty common storm event. So that roadway is going to be inundated quite frequently, which is why it's indicated with a blue icon. As we move upstream, you can see the same trends with the roadways and bridges that begin to become impacted with each of these storm events. And just highlighting, I think this is one of the last map book pages I'll be going over. But again, Double Log Cabin Road, that bridge with a red icon will begin to be inundated with a 6-inch storm in a 24-hour period. So those are the map books for existing conditions. And the team here knows how to read those maps if it's not a 24-hour storm. So if it's a 12-hour storm or a 6-hour storm, they know how to read the map book so that they can tell which event they would be expecting for those inundations, critical infrastructure, and roadways becoming impassable. So that is one of the products that you guys can review after this presentation. The second one is increased development and increased population growth through the year 2045. So we created 6 scenarios, which I'll go over in the next slide. And each of them are some variation of different development or population or a rainfall pattern. And the results are in the form of a flow increase or flood depth increase throughout the watershed or averaged across the stream. And these results are also only used to inform resiliency for the community. I don't have a crystal ball. We can't predict the future. So it really is just to help give those guide rails for the county to help inform decisions for the future for you all. So this map kind of just, if you blinked, you may have missed it, but it shows the variation in the color. I'll go back real quick. So this is 2024, and that's 2045. So it shows an increase in population within the county. So the 6 scenarios, again, are different combinations of watershed and meteorological conditions. So we have 2 scenarios are the present year. It's 2024, even though right now it's 2025. The study was conducted in 2024. So we have scenario 1 and 4 are based on right now, today. So we call this the base condition. There's no change in population, no change in development. We have an average rainfall pattern. We have 4 scenarios that represent a predicted future condition in 2045. Those include increased population and increased development, and those have varying storm intensities. The first 3 scenarios represent normal rainfall patterns, and the last 3 represent more intense rainfall patterns. That's a shorter duration storm with more rainfall. That's called intensity. So again, same 6 scenarios in a qualitative way, showing how conditions change in the watershed with increased development and population. So on the top right of your screen, you'll see a little legend there that shows arrows increase or decrease for that condition. Or no change. So our base condition is no change. We're comparing everything to that. So the most likely condition, which is scenario 2, this is what we predict is the most likely hydrologic condition of the watershed given the development and population growth within the county. So we have increased paved surfaces, we have a decreased travel time of water, so that water's getting to you more quickly, and decreased natural storage of water. Scenario 3 is your most susceptible scenario. This is more development and more population growth. So we have much more increase in paved surfaces, much quicker travel time for water, so a decreased travel time, and less natural storage ability. The last 3, 4, 5, and 6, are all of those first 3 scenarios, but you have more intense rainfall events. So you're seeing the storm length decreasing and your rainfall increasing. So that's kind of what this table is showing qualitatively. The team had to put together numbers to that to help inform the changes in flow and the changes in flood depth. So as I mentioned before, we use case studies and literature to make those decisions on watershed changes. And these are some of the results. So we ran all the scenarios for a range of hypothetical storms, your 2 through 500 year events. I'm just gonna go with the 100-year event, that 1% chance storm, as an example, because I know this is already very boring for most of you. So we have 3 junctions that we're looking at. We have the Spencer Creek Gauge, the Spencer Creek and Martha Branch confluence, and the Spencer Creek and Cooks Branch confluence. That's what those yellow dots are. I'm just going to go over, for time's sake, the confluence of Spencer Creek and Cooks Branch. So everything is compared to your base condition, remember 2024. So your most likely flow increase for the 100-year event in 2045 is a 5% increase in flow. If we move down the table, scenario 3, compared to your base condition, your most susceptible condition of the watershed with increased development and increased population, we're looking at a 10% increase in flow from today. As we move down and we get more intense storm events, that's the shorter duration storms with more rainfall, we're looking at a 15% increase in flow. And that's not even in the future, that one. Scenario 4 is if it happened tomorrow and you have more intense storms, you have a 15% increase in flow. Scenario 5 is the 2045 event. That's your most likely scenario with intense storms. It's a 19% increase in flow. And finally, the last scenario, scenario 6, that's a 23% increase in flow compared to the base condition. If tables aren't your thing, I have a graph. It says all the same information. It has colors to keep you all alive. It tells you everything that the last one did, just in a different format. So nothing I haven't already said. But as you can see, we have those 3 locations. If you're looking at the confluence of Spencer Creek and Cooks Branch, you can see those increases of flow compared to your base condition, which is 2024. So this is a hydrograph, which is your flow as it changes in time. So this is what us engineers look at day in and day out. But I wanted to show that this is the 100-year hydrograph for the confluence of Spencer Creek and Cooks Branch. And so this is scenario 1 that is showing up. This is your base condition. So for this specific location for the 100-year event, it's about 10,000 CFS. Okay, cool, Kelly, what does that mean? Well, compared to scenario 6, you can see that not only is the magnitude increase, so your peak flow is increased, which is what we just talked about, that about 23% increase in flow, but it has traveled quicker throughout the watershed. So that arrow indicates that it is moving 3 hours quicker because of the more intense storms. So you have, excuse me?
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you have the flood wave is hitting your community quicker because those more intense storms are coming through. So this is just an example that not only will that peak flow be higher, but you have less time to react when those intense storms come through. So great, what does that mean? Flow, CFS, this is stage. So this is how we translate that flow into flood depth. So again, this is an example for just the 100-year storm, your 1% flood. And this is in feet compared to the base condition. So these are averages for Spencer Creek, Dry Fork Branch, Cooks Branch, and the unnamed tributary. And if we're just going to look at Spencer Creek, that second column in the table, if we look at the most likely scenario, which is increased development and population, the most likely case that we believe will happen in 2045 compared to the base condition, you're looking at an average half-foot increase in flood depth along Spencer Creek. As we move down the table, scenario 3, which is that more changes to the watershed due to development and population, it's 0.6 foot increase on average along that stream. And as you move down and you look at scenario 6, you're looking at an average of a 1 foot increase in flood stage and flood depth. So again, just a graph if you prefer to look at it for a trend. This is all the same information as the table, just in a different format. So just take a look at the color scheme here. So the warmer colors here are the different scenarios, the more intense scenarios. I wanted to show what your inundation might look like with those increased flood depths. So this is Spencer Creek, near Spence Creek neighborhood. The light blue inundation is scenario 1, is your base condition. And you may not even be able to see, but you have the other 5 scenarios on there. So you can barely even see what those increase in stages actually mean for some of these storms. And again, it's not to make light of the increase in flood depth, but it's to show that maybe the geographical extent of that flooding may not change all that much on certain streams in some locations. That is a zoomed in portion. You can see the reds, the yellows, the blacks there. That shows just an increase in the inundation extent due to the increased development, population, and intensity of storms. This is the Cooks Branch. Again, you can, especially with the small screens, you can't really see. This is the Dry Fork, which has a little bit more inundation in some of the open land over there and the unnamed tributary. So that does conclude the key results of the study and the generalizations that we've made. But I would like to note that again, we don't have a crystal ball, so these conditions can change, population rates can change, development plans can change, and as we've seen, the intensity of storms, you know, we evaluated a 6-hour storm, and y'all got 4 inches in 1 hour, so that's some really intense rainfall events that you've experienced. So this is all used to help the county with resiliency and mitigation planning. And that's kind of what we're here to do to support the county. All you.
Thank you. With that said, I think some of the slides on there definitely show the intensity of some of the backwater that we get. And so we just, and understand that there's nothing perfect. She doesn't have a crystal ball, we don't. And we're talking about a 24-hour period of time and a certain rainfall. And what I've experienced and what Betty Jones has experienced is a 6-inch rainfall in 10 to 12 hours, which at least you know where it's going to be flooded, but it's much more intense and it's much more difficult, and I think we have some folks in the audience that will share that. And with that said, let's get into open panel discussion. Questions from the audience. We have a number of folks up here. Other than myself that's supposed to be experts, I'm certainly not, but hopefully we can get some questions answered. So questions, it's up to you guys. Yes, ma'am. Would you mind stepping up to the podium here? And the reason this is all being filmed, so we want to.
It's being.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh my gosh.
That'll be filmed.
No, I'm nervous. My name is Lucy Landreth, and I've been here about 9 years. I live on Barnes Drive in the Richmond Hill subdivision. A lot of these are my neighbors. I did not get the worst of it. They got the worst of it. But I did get my pool flooded for the first time in I don't know how long. My neighbor, or the people that we bought the house from, had built a retaining wall. The water flowed over the retaining wall. It flooded my whole backyard, got into the crawl space, and knocked over a portion of my fence. I had logs, and they had built up stones and everything. My neighbors have had ductwork. There are 2 feet of water in their garages, and this has happened multiple times. I don't know what was different this time, but I know that what I saw when I looked out in the back was it looked almost like a lake, not a creek, a lake, and it was flowing. The flow went not from behind me, which is the creek, but it flowed from where my neighbors are at the beginning of the street at Barnes Drive, coming all the way, and it went, I have like about a 6-inch step up from my lawn to my, patio and everything, and it was just flowing over there across the pool and kept on going. I have never seen it come like that for that direction. I also know that there was at some point they built some type of drainage off of Lexington between my neighbor and myself, and water just gushes down from that every time there's a rain, and it's going right into the creek, just making things worse. Now, I do know that I was concerned about it soon after we had moved here, just inquiring. And I said, well, what's being done to, like,
Mitigate it.
you know, fix this? What things can be done? Deepening the creek. I believe I was told that we couldn't do it because of some environmental thing with the state of Tennessee, so they can't decrease the creek. We all keep our areas of the creek free and flowing. It's our responsibility, and we do that. The other thing I had heard is at the beginning of Lexington, the cul-de-sac, Mr. Lowry owns a large piece of land, and a suggestion had been made to approach him possibly for the building of a retention pond, which may help mitigate the flow going down into our neighborhood.
Retain some of the water.
So I just kind of wanted to bring up some of those. I'm sure some of my neighbors have other suggestions and other things they would like to contribute. They've been here longer than I have. But, yeah, it was sad to see what happened to them.
I understand.
Yeah.
That you're in the city of Lebanon, correct?
Yes, I am.
That city. Millie, you want to address anything here? And then anybody wants to address the environmental?
I would love to. So the city has looked at that. Neil Schaefer actually did a study back in 2013. It showed we wouldn't actually be able to lower the stream all that much because it's already so flat. The environmental aspect is part of it. We do have to get a lot of permits with TDEC to get in there and dredge out the stream, but even with that, we wouldn't have been saving much anyway because the stream is so flat through there. The other thing I'd like to point out is that was a very unusual storm for us. As Kelly, in those graphs, I don't know if you all caught, I know that's a lot to look at, but we had a more intense storm than what was modeled. That was kind of that orange color, that no changes. If an intense storm happened today, that is what we experienced on Barnes Drive, and that particular storm, especially in the Spencer Creek watershed, it moved east to west. Most of our storms, I'm sure y'all know, come west to east. When we have a storm that moves east to west, it really hammers that creek in particular. So the city is looking into building some ponds. Richmond Hills was built partly in the county back in the early 80s, so no detention was required. That's not something we do these days. Another part of it was built in the city, but once again, early 90s, we didn't have many requirements. So we're looking at building some ponds and some of those remaining lots there. That is something new to Richmond Hills. They don't have any. So there's a pretty big maintenance question on who would maintain that and how would that work and who would build it. So we are looking into it. We've looked into it before. We've talked to Mr. Lowry before about building ponds on his property. He's hoping to sell and develop one day, so he's definitely considering that piece as well. But we're talking to him, and we're looking at some of those open lots remaining.
Well, I'm sure he would, I mean, just a normal person, yes, you would want to develop that, but look at what it's doing to his neighbors, you know, I mean, it's.
Yes, and he is definitely willing to work with us. It's just a matter of when and how, and we're really probably going to be dealing with the whole family as he's, you know, later on in age, and they're, you know, wanting to protect him as well as, you know, his property.
And what about all these other things that have been built to help the drainage? And I'm seeing it, like I said, the one between myself and my neighbor, when there's any bad storm, I mean, I just see water gushing down that drain thing right into, you know.
Yes, from Lexington Drive.
Yes.
Yes, so that storm pipe was failing. The road was, I think, on the verge of collapse, so our drainage crew did go out there and replace. It was the same size pipe. It may have been crushed before they replaced it, and that could be part of the increase, but it was the same size pipe. We're also looking at just upstream of there potentially doing some sort of pond. One gentleman owns all that property just on the other side of Lexington. There's not much we can do because, as you said, it's a hill that goes straight down. There's only so much we can do in a situation like that, but on on his side, we do see some potential for maybe slowing that water down. But we're looking at a lot of options in Richmond Hills where we see open area, but unfortunately, when that was built, it didn't require much on the stormwater side.
I was just trying to figure out what was different about this storm because of the way it just flowed different. Like I said, it
Yes, this particular storm started at the top of the watershed.
all like this, that the people before us had built all along from where my backyard ends all the way up, and to my neighbor's side and my side, it was at the level of that retaining wall.
Yes,
That's never happened.
we went through and we took several pictures. That was a very unusual storm for us. Far more intense than what we typically see. Hopefully, that is a 0.2% chance of happening and will not happen again this year. But weather patterns are becoming more and more unpredictable and increasing in intensity. And, you know, if you were on the west side of the city, you didn't get a drop of rain. It was only in that watershed, and unfortunately, where it hit caused the most damage it could possibly cause.
Unfortunately, that's what's happening, is the intensity. Right? Do you know what the intensity and the time was on that storm?
So that was 3.5 inches per hour, and it only lasted like 30 minutes, but it did a lot of damage in that amount of time. The storm actually lasted longer, but that intensity was about 30 minutes.
Do you know how long the total storm was?
The problem with that storm is it's set. I think it sat there for a couple hours. Like I said, moving east to west, I was watching it at my house. I'm closer to the top of the watershed, and you just saw the wind blowing back and forth. And
Yeah, and I didn't get any alerts, not from the weather alert, not the police department. I usually get
I
the
did not
alerts
either.
on my phone, you know, and stuff, but there was nothing.
our public works director, who actually he lives where the storm was, but he was on the west side of town at the time, and he thought people were pulling a joke on him that Arlington Drive, I'm sure you saw, was
Oh, yeah, the
extremely
street
damaged. The
was
street
up
came up.
again. That's the second time that's happened.
It is. So we're looking at that as well, and
And that is the only way out. I called my boss because I'm like, I don't know if I can get out to the office, you know, because I knew the policemen were there, and that's our only exit out of that street.
Right.
So I'm sure some of my
Leslie,
other
Make
neighbors.
a comment, please, on warning.
Yeah, so my name's Melissa Sizemore. I'm with WEMA. I'm also a meteorologist. So that storm was particularly unique because, one, the way it was traveling. The way the high pressure and the low pressure were situated in the area was forcing the storms to move from east to west, which really exacerbates the issue specifically in this area because of the way the water moves in our watershed. Two, I live off of 109 and 70, so it was on top of me as well. I'm not very far from you all, maybe a mile and a half. It was pouring buckets at my house as well. It wasn't a severe thunderstorm, so it wasn't warned because the winds weren't in excess of 60 miles an hour. We had no hail. It was just particularly intense rainfall within a short amount of time. And unfortunately, that's going to start occurring more and more often because of the way weather patterns are moving, the probability of certain things starting to increase. So this is something that we as WEMA, I am new to the staff here. They hired a meteorologist back in January. They noticed that this is an issue and hired somebody with the expertise to be able to look into these things and to be able to adequately plan for these things in the future. So we're continuing to look into this. We're continuing to look at flooding as a main hazard in Wilson County because it is occurring more and more often. And typically flooding costs a lot of money because a lot of people don't have flood insurance and normal homeowners don't. Insurance doesn't cover that, right? So we're continuing to look into that. I just wanted to clarify some of the meteorological aspects of things so you guys are kind of aware and just to stay up to date. And if things like this in the future, especially long-winded rain events, we typically message this quite a bit ahead of time and plan to do that in the future as well.
Anybody else on the panel want to make any comments? I want to do a short, quick story. BJ, Billy Jones, BJ's Trailers, called me 2021, whatever it was, when they had this same type of rain event there. A gentleman on the creek there with the bank half as high as this wall, fenced it in and put some cattle in there, I think 5 or 6 head of cattle. And the water rose at that main event so fast that the cow swam across the top of a brand-new 5-foot fence and got washed under the bridge on Northern Road and came out on the other side of the creek. And that perked me up. This gentleman had some stories at his house too, some terrible stories. But that perked me up to try to get some studies done so we can kind of look at where the inundation will and will not take place. Anybody else would like to make comment? Yes, sir, please come forward. That's not good.
My name's Charles Hicks, and I'm a neighbor, and we're the ones that live at the end of Lexington in the cul-de-sac. And I know you guys are talking about a lot of weather patterns and things like that are changing, but we've been there for almost 30 years. And over 30 years, it's increased in the flow. And just recently, it's been really bad. And we've got pictures of this last one, but we've got pictures of previous ones where it's not that bad of a rain, really. It's not that bad. And we're at the head of Spencer Creek. And where it is, and where she's talking about on Jack's property, it is a bowl with one side gone. So with all the development that took place of Iroquois and everything, there's a lot of extra water that's running down into that bowl, and it has nowhere to go except for it hits our house first. And I know there's a lot of people that have a lot of flooding problems, and I'm sorry for them because I know what it's like. But it seems as if that when you're talking about Jack's property and something that could be done to mitigate some of that there and slow it down just a little bit, it could help. There has to be something. And I mean, and I know Christopher said that, this is more for future events. But when you're talking about future events, you've got a lot of people that have been a lot of growth around them that have created a lot of this problem.
Rooftops and asphalt.
Yes. So, I guess a lot of our concern starting in Richmond Hills is where Spencer Creek originates from. I mean, is there just nothing that can be done?
So, like I said, we are trying to work with Mr. Lowry. We also noticed, so city previously did not have any real requirements for building a single-family home. The state does not allow us to really put a lot of pressure on those. So once those lots are subdivided, there wasn't much we could do. So even those empty lots that have been built on, over courses of many years, every single lot that gets built on is adding to the issues. So one of the things the city did back probably 2 years ago now is we require plot plans. So we're looking at every single home that gets added. And if it's added in a problem area, we are working with those homeowners on trying to make sure that they're not adding to the issue. So that's one of the things we've done, especially with that Iroquois area. I know it's more built out now, but there are still some open lots up there that we're looking into. The other thing we noticed is at the end of Bethlehem Ridge, from 2018 up until now, there's been several homes added that, once again, on the city side, we didn't really review that based on the engineering side of things. Single-family homes, you just got your building permit and you built your house. Well, every single home that's been built up there has also added to the impervious area that goes into that watershed. So we're trying to keep a tighter eye on things, especially when we know flooding issues occur. I'm hoping to take this particular study to our city council, and for any new development in Spence Creek, getting some additional regulation, and Spencer Creek, getting some additional regulations added to help with the issues so we don't compound what's already out there.
I mean, we've actually built on the side. Jack gave us permission to reshape some of the land next to us, and we pushed a berm up. It's about, I don't know, it's about 2.5, 3 feet tall. And I like I said, I know this was a freak rain thing that happened this last time, but even during normal rain flows and stuff, we still hope this is holding some of it back.
Right.
But this one, I mean, it actually, I've got a picture of it where it's just like it's just coming over the top of a dam.
Yeah, we've
So-
seen the pictures, and I know exactly where your house is and the berm you're referring to.
So some of this, like I said, I guess it's kind of frustrating for a lot of people that have been there for a lot of years. It's not been that way. It never has been that way.
Yeah, and
Just till
unfortunately,
recently.
like Melissa and Kelly both said, our rain events they're not getting any better. The intensity's getting far worse, and the intensity is what really floods us, especially in Wilson County.
Hopefully the pattern will change.
Hopefully. Normally, you think of a critical lot as a lot that would flood and prevent, and Chris, you may want to jump on this in a minute, but hopefully prevent people from building on a critical lot. But you're talking about a critical lot that's creating flooding upstream from you,
Yeah, I will.
Jack Lauer's place, et cetera.
Yeah, it's just up high. A lot of the subdivisions that were built up around Jack's property, that's just, there's nowhere for the water to go but down in that bowl,
And we're talking about,
right into Spencer Creek.
right, we're talking about intensity here versus time, which is a critical thing. Anybody else like to make comments from the panel?
I would like to add to what
Please.
you said. So a lot of Richmond Hills and Iroquois both, because they were built in the 90s and platted then, there's no critical lots out there. Anything even along the Spencer Creek is not deemed a critical lot. We ran into that several times, and we've had to put some stops to some building permits because of that issue. Actually, one on Barnes Drive towards the end was one that I believe was built maybe 2018, 2019, and we caught that one as they were building and made them, raise above that 100-year elevation based on some previous studies. But that is one thing that we ran into with that subdivision, is because it's been there for so long, what we would now deem critical lots, they don't exist there. And once they're platted, we can't force an owner to go back and replat just to make it a critical lot.
So what happens, like was talking about at the end of the cul-de-sac where it says the city has the right to, or the county, to build a road through there at the end of that cul-de-sac? What happens if they do build a road through there?
So that's what I was mentioning before, that I'm hoping our city adopts this study and we require some additional regulations on developing in this watershed. So increased pond sizes. So if you do extend that road, what you would normally have to detain is a 100-year storm event, bumping that up to maybe detaining a 500-year storm event, or detaining 50% more of your pond. Once this study goes to council, that's what I will be proposing to them. But that's kind of what we're planning for that area, because it's really, as you said, Jack Lowry's property is at the top of the watershed. So we know that that's kind of our last chance to get some help out there.
Okay. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, sir. And again, we're talking about intensity versus time, and it's critical. Come right up, sir. Give us your name, please.
I'm Rich Tyner. I live on Barnes Drive, too. And I'd like to go back and ask Maddie kind of a follow-up question. First, Kelly, thank you so much for this presentation. It's helpful, a little depressing, but helpful. Really two kind of quick follow-ups. First of all, the recent improvement on Lexington. We've been told, in fact, while they were doing it, we were told that the size was the same, and I don't really have a reason to dispute that, except that it was repaired because it was in a state of collapse. So even though the size is the same, it's now flowing much more freely, which exacerbates our problem down on the creek. It takes more off the hill, but it does exacerbate our problem down on the creek, and it seems that improvement or repair might have been good to have given some thought to what's going to be, what do we need to do down here so we don't make life worse for the people on Barnes. And I'd love to hear your response to that. But related to that, my second question, follow-up question is, you mentioned on the other side of Lexington from Barnes, there is a pretty good size vacant lot. Was that kind of pie in the sky thinking, or is there really a possibility that there might be some help on that lot?
So we have not, I believe, our drainage coordinator is actually here, R.T. Baldwin, so he may be able to say more to that, but I do not believe we've had a chance to talk to that owner yet. So I guess right now it would be pie in the sky thinking until we talk to him. But the homeowner at that corner, he did purchase that vacant lot, so he does own it, so we would just be dealing with someone who obviously bought that land so no one could build behind him. So we're hoping that he will be willing to work with us, but that is what we're hoping, that we can kind of slow down that water and kind of store it on his lot if possible, because we are aware, as I mentioned, this was we need to fix this pipe's collapsing, potential for the road collapse. So I do not believe much thought was given to, large storm events like we saw. And unfortunately, with what happened, I think we're going to really look into trying to do what we can to fix that.
Right. Well, we appreciate everything that all of you are doing to try to help us, and that helps me a lot because now we know how to pray about that lot on Lexington. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Please, sir, come forward.
Well, Dwayne Van Hook, I've been on that creek for now 25 years. Built several of the homes that are in that neighborhood, and luckily none of those flood, by the way. But one of the things that nobody has looked at or probably realized is that the Lowry property up there up until, what was it, somewhere around 10 or 11 or something like that, used to be wooded property. And water does not flow. I mean, water storage is better on wooded property because of the deep roots. You got about 45% runoff. Once that became cleared grassland, all of a sudden your water drainage went from about 45% to about 80%. So, yeah, we're getting a lot more water coming off of the hill. It's, we're catching 50 or 60 acres of water. And that particular, I'm not sure about the lot that you're talking about, but there were 3 lots over on Arlington that used to be owned by Bradshaw Trust that one of the creek run through. The only place you're going to catch the water coming off of Derby Downs is right over there. So I'm assuming that's the lot that you're talking about, right?
So we're actually talking about the 2 on Letcher.
You on Lecter?
Letcher, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wondered why.
We're aware of the ones on Arlington too. The problem with that, it goes up a hill. There's a big knob there. It'd take a lot of dirt moving to get.
It would take a lot.
It would. Letcher, it's just a branch off of Spencer Creek, so it's got about, I believe, 4 acres going to it. So I mean, it's not big, but I think any little bit we can do will help the situation out there, and at the very least, hopefully, give people some more time.
Yeah, that one would help some. The gentleman at the end of Lexington is catching the water now that used to not run off the hills quite as fast. I've been watching that creek since I was building out there in November of 2000. So it used to take a lot of rain in a long period of time, but now since we've lost that woodshed and it's open gray, so we've got a lot. Is there? I'm just thinking about emergency management, planning, engineering. Is there a possibility that there could be any state or federal money to help facilitate building building a detention area in a couple of lots, and one of them, I think if we do the one at the end of Lexington for the Lowry property and one over on Arlington, I don't think that creek behind us will ever flood under a normal circumstance again. Because you got to all the water running off of Iroquois and Derby Downs for the most part is running right through that creek. Runs right into that creek, almost directly behind me. I'm up on the hill. it's just making that much worse. And Mr. Tyner's talking about the water flow coming off. He's down about 3 lots further down. All of that water, instead of being drained into the creek, is actually being drained through his side and backyard, and it runs through all of the backyards back through there. And I really don't know what we could do because the road level isn't high enough to get above the creek to pipe those out into the creek, are they? That would be an engineering question I'd have to go to for the, city engineers. And I'm assuming that's why that was never done. It was just trenched out and it all runs through his yard, and his garage will flood about that deep when all that water happens. And when it runs off of Iroquois, when it runs off of Lowry property, and it all runs together, and then plus what comes off of Barnes coming off of that particular hill, all of it runs back into his backyard and into his driveway. So I just wonder if there was a potential that there's any money available for something like that. One of you mentioned something about who's going to maintain that. That would be something we'd need to address with the homeowners association, since HOAs are required to handle those things. But yeah, it's going to be what everybody wants to pay for.
Melissa, jump in here, please.
I can certainly answer your question about the grant funding. There have been funds in the past available, but with the uncertainty of grant programs in the federal government right now, a lot of that mitigation money no longer exists. So it's certainly something that all grants right now, we're keeping our eye out on to be able to see what kind of programs we would qualify for and apply for. But because of certain things happening in FEMA and things along those lines, a lot of those grant programs are currently not being funded. So those pots of money currently no longer exist, but that doesn't necessarily stop us from going ahead and looking at potential projects and preparing for that to be able to then have something on the shelf to dust off. So if that money does become available, we could then apply for it.
No, that would be one of the things I look at. If you've got a game plan where it becomes available, FEMA, yeah, there've been some funny money going on with that, but I think most of that is going to, in the next year or two, is going to get funded through a different part of the government organization. So those funds would return if we've got a plan that we could actually start on somehow or another. I mean, we've got the Corps here, we've got emergency management, we've got city, county engineers. If we have a plan in place and that money is available, is it possible that we could get, say, the city and the county? I don't know. I'm mostly probably going to be city council to approve funding, because usually most of those are
Usually
contingent on local input. And for the most part, I know Rick's not going to want to spend, a couple of $100,000 out of the city coffers to do it out. So he's going to want something up front somewhere.
We'll have to tell him about election day, won't we? This lady would like to.
Yeah,
address.
I just wanted to address how the Corps could be involved, but also manage expectations on this, because we do various different kinds of studies. This is one tonight where the intent is to help with planning and emergency management and address issues without construction. We do have projects that lead to construction, but those are really a little bit of a longer term investment in both time and money. So it's the way our funding is that it's often a couple years before a non-federal sponsor has to come to us. So Wilson County or City of Lebanon would come to us, like we did work with them on Bartons Creek. Then we would have to do a study. That study is collecting sometimes much more data than what was involved in this study presented tonight. And then consider costs and the benefits. And that's one of the things with the Bartons Creek, is that any solution was going to cost more than the benefits that we're going to receive, because if we put more federal funds into something, we need to have a benefit on that's going to exceed the cost. So that's always that becomes an issue sometimes, that we're not able to get over that hurdle. And then even if we did, then it would go into construction. And, if we were to start today, we're probably, and get money tomorrow, we're probably still 6 years away, but realistically, it's probably even longer than that if we were to go down that route. And we can't do that without a non-federal sponsor.
Millie, you and Melissa can talk
Yeah.
offline and kind of keep me in the loop if you would.
I would just like to see, if we can get together, put a plan together and have it ready to run as soon as,
Funds available.
we got money available. Let's go talk to the city. Let's go over here to the county. Let's go to the Corps. What can we do? If we've got a plan, we could do it. Because I think that the two ponds that I'm talking about going in would almost eliminate most of Richmond Hills flooding, and it would almost eliminate all of the South Fork flooding that happens too. I know the builders of all those developments, and I understand that pre-1990, nobody did anything, nobody even thought about stormwater. And until Richmond Hills was built and Iroquois was built, South Fork never flooded. So I understand that. But if we can slow it down on the front end, where the Corps is probably going to come in is on the back end, backside down further where the new developments are coming in. As soon as you bulldoze trees, you lose that watershed
Change the capacity.
that's there. So, and they're going to have a little bit more. I know that Goodall's got 1,200 homes going in down there. A lot of that drains into that. I know there's another development that's currently going in that drains into it, and there's just so much creek, and then there's a railroad track. So I don't know how you're going to handle that one.
We don't either. We have, we're looking at the entire watershed all the way to the river, and due to this recent event, everybody is kind of focused on that recent event. But is anybody from the lower end of the Long Branch or anybody else that would like to share anything or ask any questions of the panel? PJ, you got anything you want to add? Do you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation here for the benefit of all?
Videos this year, what I want to see. This man across the creek from me, Randy, on Dropbox, he cleared out. Here's the creek right here. Now you can see how deep, how far it is. It's 300 feet water going across our land. It alleviated all that.
What, did you clear off trees and that sort of thing?
He took a D9 loader in there and cleared it all out.
No,
And you see how wide it is now.
gives it more capacity, lets it get out quicker.
Oh, yeah, never come across the road.
You either got to retain the water or get it out of there quicker, and that's what he's done down there.
Yeah.
Has anybody else got any comments?
Is this to the west of you? Is this to the west of you?
Yep. I know you probably want to.
Anybody else got any comments or ideas, thoughts?
You probably.
Please? I'm trying to wait. Well, don't wait any long. Get up here and say who you are. And come on, get up here.
Trees is, but you can see all where
It always has been. Get up here. I know you.
they took all that water from under that bridge. It never come across the bridge.
The northern road is right.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
and
We do have some good citizens in the county. I just want everybody to know that, so.
cleaned up. We got 14.
Who said they're nervous? We're all nervous.
So they never did.
I've been here 25
your
years.
name.
I've seen everything.
Give us your name so everybody knows you.
My name.
No, for the panel, please.
My name's Terry Stone. That's like S-T-O-N-E. And take notes on this, Kelly.
I'm just pretending to.
No, you guys listen. Look, I want y'all to understand, I appreciate everything we just went through. We've been through this before, almost everybody over here, especially on Barnes Drive. We've been through every bit of this. And I'm going to tell you right now, what you've got to do We don't want to stop water coming down. We've got watersheds. We got one at the end of Lexington. We got a pond up there. You've got a lake up at the other end. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to stop the water that's coming in. I know they felt the difference with where we fixed the main road on Lexington. But you want the water. It's going to come down. We're right there in the middle of everything. Now, you know that, Jerry. That's exactly where we are. You don't want to stop the water. It's going to come. So what do you do with that understanding that water's coming? What do you do, Christopher? Think about it. What's that?
You leave.
All right, no, wait a minute.
Sorry.
Now listen. Now what did you say? I sat right back there with those guys and listened to her, and I said she just gave us a reason to move, sell, or get out of here. You hear what I'm saying? That now our place is, we've been inundated with folks coming into everywhere here. We know that. Wilson County is growing every which way. Obviously, our city is. And unless you want people to start doing the same thing she just said, we've got to come to some kind of conclusion. There's one conclusion I've seen. I saw it in our study in 10. I saw it in 1922. I've seen it every time. But I give up because no one would listen. I've talked to someone in the city. You've got to lower the basin. We are already in a 100-year flood plan. We know that, flood zone. We're there. We bought the property, and we love it. Am I wrong, Ronnie? We love our property. We love it. We wouldn't still be there. So what you've got to do is you've got to figure out a way to give us a shot when it does rain and it does flood, and we know it's going to happen. This thing we just talked about just happened. We hadn't seen that. Before, it's always rained, everything's got wet, and it floods up. And then we're in the lake down there. The creek. I mean, it floods every house on that block. You're in the creek. See, so we're not. So what you've got to do is you've got to give us a chance since we live there. You've got to start up. Even if you I don't have no problem with the holding pond up there where we were talking about, Jack's place. We've got you got a lake up there, the big holding pond. We've got one already. I don't care where you put them. Let the water flow, lower the basin. And it can be done within just a short time. Now, how far you won't go out, that's up to what we won't do, but that can be done. You know what I'm saying? I won't tell you who. I won't say who, but I checked it out back in, even after we got through that original study back in 10 or 11, when they had the first study on it. Spent 68 or...
You're talking about dredging out the creek, getting more volume in the creek.
Lower the basin. As you lower it, you fix the sides all the way out. Redo the sides as you lower the basin. It's the only shot we got. Doesn't guarantee we're not going to flood, because we're already... Look, City of Lebanon's built over what? Name it. What's the name of it? Town, you don't know?
Town Creek.
No, Town Creek.
It's built right over Town Creek. We've got our own city over Town Creek. Think about that. So there's no problem with where we bought. Yes, it was in the flood plan, but we got a city built over it. So you've got to understand, you have to work around where you've got a thriving community, and we have one out here on right where we're talking, Spencer Creek. We've got a great community. We just got to handle it. Now, someone's got to move beyond our studies. Pardon me there. Someone's got to move, Christopher, beyond our studies and get to what we need to do. Is that clear? Is that
Amen.
Was that too blunt? What do you think? Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Basically, what has to happen, you either have to drain the water or get it on out faster, one of the two, and that's what you're referring to. So would the panel, somebody on the ecology side, address what needs to be done ecology-wise to dredge that creek or open it up, or to... Somebody jump in here.
I'm reluctant.
Aren't we all? Well, we've got a problem. We don't know how to solve it. It's countywide.
Yeah,
we do.
I understand the idea of moving the water through quickly and to get it out of that one problem area. Looking at it holistically, it would just be pushing the problem, on the one hand, pushing the problem down further until basically you get to the lake. So it might solve the problem in one area, but not the other. Ecologically, there's a lot of hurdles environmentally with dropping, with dredging out any creek. There's, without knowing any of the particular species or anything that's in the creek right there, I'm just talking more generally. There's a lot of environmental laws and regulations. There's some state requirements. Nothing is impossible, but there's a lot of hurdles with that. We always also need to look for ways to avoid, minimize, and mitigate before we have environmental harms. So just generally, those are some of the hurdles that would be involved with that. So just generally speaking, just...
Been there from 9 and 10, I know.
Yeah.
We're all aware of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Anybody else have comments?
I'll help answer that question as well. So as part of this and the data that the Corps provided to the county is looking into all of that information to help with planning, development, emergency response, but we also are working with them for flood risk mitigation measures. So that's not something that I presented on tonight, but we did look into bridge widening. We looked at dredging, we looked at upland storage, and so the county is looking into the results that we provided them so that they can make the decisions that are right for their community. So again, it is something that we looked into. I don't know, Brendan, how many alternatives there were? 60?
16.
Oh, whew, okay, 16. 60 is quite a lot. So we looked at 16, but they're also combinations of different measures as well. So the engineer who did that study, he's great. He did leave the Corps of Engineers within the last few months, but he did a fantastic job, and those results are now at the county. So we've heard you. I've taken a lot of notes here from everyone. And so some of these we have looked into already, and they do have some promising results. So it is a matter of obtaining land, looking to see what's feasible. And again, these studies, since they don't go into design and construction, they don't have all the information that we need to have critical design information. So we give maybe a 10% design where really it's really feasibility. You need something more concrete, something like a 60% design to really inform decisions for the county. So you need different types of engineers, economists, other scientists, and that's something that the county can help us with if we're going to be doing part of that study, like Valerie mentioned, with a different program, or if the county would hire, a private firm to do that study for you. But thank you.
I hope everybody understands that every time it rains in Lebanon, it runs out into Wilson County. So it's everybody's problem. Would anybody from the panel like to make any comments before we close out tonight?
I would like to add just
Please.
one more thing to our current conversation. As with anything, we've mentioned the challenges with environmental, the challenges with alternative designs and hiring someone. Everything costs money. Talk to your council people, talk to your county commissioners. It starts with our elected officials granting our staff money to bid things out and get things done. This study was not free. The city is very thankful for the county for doing this study. I know it was, there's issues downstream in the county, but obviously a lot of you live in the city limits. This has helped you as well. This study our city council can adopt, and we can hopefully make changes and take some of the Corps' recommendations. As Kelly mentioned, they've got some 10% design feasibility options. So The city council now has something more tangible to look at, bid out, potentially get designed, potentially get constructed, but it starts with your city council, your mayor, even your county commission getting things done.
Yes, ma'am. As we wrap up here, yes, ma'am.
Be real quick.
Surely.
When you were talking about that, I have had many discussions at the beginning with Phil Moorhead, who's our current Ward 6 alderman, and when this all happened, and he told me about this meeting and everything. Prior to him, when we moved here, had many conversations with Rick Bell, who was at that time our ward alderman. And so if you mention my name, he will know exactly who I am. But Rick Bell is very much aware of the issues that we've had in the Richmond Hill subdivision. So I had been trying to do what I can to talk to the people I need to talk to. Thank you.
We were talking about elected officials a moment ago. I believe I'm the only elected official in the room at the moment. So anybody else from the committee council want to say anything? Anybody else in the audience? Thank you so much for being here, and hopefully we've shared information, hopefully get some results down the road. Thank you very much. We'll stand adjourned. Thank you.